I call the honourable member for Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I rise to support the comments of the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Paterson and all those who have and will be contributing to this important motion, which recognises the ferocity of the recent rains and floods in the Hunter Valley and the lives that were lost as a result of those events, and of course the damage done and the suffering which was felt by so many people. It's a reminder, Mr Deputy Speaker, that despite all of our knowledge and innovation and technology in this 21st century, we are no match for Mother Nature. When Mother Nature grows angry, and we've seen Hollywood capitalise on this concept on many occasions, we as human beings have no response. And I'm glad the member for Paterson is here because, and maybe it's not the time, but he knows that I haven't been the most enthusiastic promoter of policies to deal with the concept of our changing climate. I've always promoted an incremental and modest approach in keeping with the global community. But it is clear to me that if there is any doubt at all, that human activity is causing the weather to become more predictable and more volatile than ever before, then we should take out that insurance policy. And as politicians globally, we should be doing all we can to, or anything we can, to mitigate against dramatic and variable climate change. I, like the member for Paterson, have never seen rain fall like it did around the 20th of April and a couple of days after. And as the member for Paterson said, in some cases very isolated. It's just as if someone had a tap above certain parts of our electorates. And it just rained and rained and rained until one was sure it couldn't possibly rain anymore, and it did. And as has been indicated by others, that caused flooding that we've never seen before. It might not have been 55 flood in general terms, but it was more than 55 flood in isolated areas, as the member for Paterson has indicated, and indeed in Dungog, enough to just wash houses away, and in one case tragically leading to the death of 3 highly regarded local citizens, including 2 veterans, Brian Wilson, Colin Webb, and very sadly Robin McDonald, all in their more mature years, and again all contributors, as I understand it, to their local communities. We also, in my own electorate, lost Anne Germain, an 86-year-old woman who'd gone to the shops in Maitland from Gilliston Heights, as I understand it, to pick up a carton of milk, and was washed off the road on her way back to Gilliston Heights. So plenty of tragedy around these events. Interestingly, on the Monday afternoon I went to Sydney for a meeting and wasn't able to get home to the Hunter Valley from Sydney. I'm now 53 years of age and I'm a regular travel from the Hunter Valley to Sydney. As you can imagine, that is a first for me. And it reminds me, thank goodness for the Hunter Expressway, because when all local roads or main roads through the Hunter Valley were blocked off to the various towns, the Hunter Expressway for most of the time, save for I think a few hours, the Hunter Expressway delivered the artery we needed throughout the valley. Going back to my theme about our 21st century knowledge and expertise and the technologies now available to us, I find it extraordinary that major townships can still be isolated by flood. Of course, there will always be cases where that is unavoidable, where you can't invest government funds necessarily to cater for a 1 in 100 year event. There'll always be examples like that, but when major towns like Gilliston Heights, in between Cessnock and Curry, are completely isolated from the rest of the community for a number of days and without power and the rest of it, then we have a problem. When the major highway through one of the most significant inland cities, Maitland, is cut for a number of days, I think we have a serious problem. And I think it is incumbent upon all 3 levels of government to have a close look at those issues. and to design a strategy, develop a strategy, and come up with some funding solutions. So a part of the road across what is known as Testers Hollow near Gilliston Heights has been very topical in this debate post the storm events. That project certainly needs to be addressed, but so too does the main road through Maitland, and so too do many other roads around the region. The community of Wallenby was also isolated, but the idea of Gilliston Heights being completely isolated, a large community, is a new one to all of us. Certainly hasn't occurred in my 53 years, and I travelled that road going to high school at Maitland Morris Brothers from Cessnock, and the water used to come over the road from time to time, but we've never seen the floodwaters this high, and we certainly haven't seen the floodwaters engulf the road on the other side of Gilliston Heights between that township and Maitland. So I think we need to have a hard look at those issues. Again, in this modern society, large communities, say, on the edge of a major city like Maitland, shouldn't be isolated, and certainly shouldn't be isolated for that period of time. Like the member for Patterson before me, I want to pay tribute to a whole range of people, and it's always fraught with danger because I'll miss some. Minister Keenan is at the table, and I thank him for his call. I also thank the Deputy Prime Minister for calling me and expressing an interest, and like the Minister, extending any assistance they could give. I think the government's response was swift and appropriate. People would always like us to do more, but that's not always possible. Of course, I think the swiftness of the response of the New South Wales government was similarly appropriate, and so I thank both governments. Of course, I thank our emergency services personnel, both paid and volunteer. The member for Patterson spoke about the SES and its origins out of the 55 floods. All of those people did a magnificent job, but so did all our emergency services people, police, ambulances, those meaning our emergency services, in our local hospitals, of course, our charities. There are many. It's dangerous naming them again, but the member for Patterson mentioned Aussie Care. We've got the Samaritans and Vinnies, and the list goes on and on and on. I just want to make a special note of the community of Gilliston Heights. They received a lot of attention because, again, it was very unusual for a large community so close to Maitland to be cut off in the way they were. And it was interesting to see people rally there. And I think, like many towns like that, where urban sprawl has given us the sort of mortgage belt look, where sometimes people will argue there's not the sense of community that existed in the old settlement patterns of towns. This event, as bad as it was, seemed to transform that community. It brought that community together. The community rallied. I was very pleased to jump in a tinny myself to go across to the town and help them organise their Anzac Day service, because they were all unable to attend one. That is the service for the centenary of Anzac, and I was happy to help them with that. But that was a rallying point from the community. There's now a Facebook page, of course, which I think will continue into the future, born out of the flood, but I think will have longevity. They did an excellent job, and there's one group there that I didn't mention. That is all those volunteers who turned up with their boats. On one side of Gilliston Heights was the SCS boats. On the other side, the Curry side, were the guys who just turned up with their tinnies, their fishing boats, even their jet skis, in order to ferry supplies and to take people, including myself, backwards and forwards. So a great tribute to them, and like all those other SES volunteers and others, not a role without risk, not only to them but also to their boats, because you have debris floating around, and of course they had to be very cautious. I'll end where I began, talking about natural disaster. I think this would be an opportunity for me just to reflect on all those who have lost their lives in Nepal. Again, a second earthquake event, or second or third, whatever it is now. Tragic loss of life, and I know that all of us together today will be thinking of them, both those who have lost people and those who are still suffering the consequences of those quakes, and I pay tribute to all those in Australia who are making great efforts to raise money on their behalf, including, by the way, the partner of my daughter, who was only trekking in Nepal 3 days. He arrived back from Nepal 3 days after the first major quake. And to his great credit, James Tatham and his mate Jack, trekking somewhere across New South Wales. I can't remember exactly where now and how far they're trekking, but as a tribute to the people that they've grown to know and love in Nepal, they're raising money for the cause like so many other Australians are appropriately doing.
Thank you, Member for Hunter.